The Houston Rockets are the hottest team in the NBA right now. They've rattled off 6 straight wins, and their new offseason additions have been exceeding expectations. Alperen Şengün is playing like one of the best centers in the NBA, but is this win streak a fluke, or are the Rockets an actual contender in the West? Let's dive into the numbers and break down the tape on today's On Pro Breakdown. Last year's Houston Rockets were one of the worst teams in the NBA, only winning 22 games. So far this year, the Rockets are 6-3 and on pace for 55 wins and 27 losses. Alperen Şengün has burst onto the scene as one of the best centers in the league right now. He's averaging 19.4 points per game, 6 assists per game, and 8.2 rebounds per game. He's playing like a mini Nikola Jokic. At only 21 years old, the numbers absolutely love Alperen Şengün. This season, he is currently number 7 in box plus minus, behind only a handful of truly elite NBA players, with Nikola Jokic being right at the top. Şengün has openly said that Nikola Jokic is the player he idolizes the most. To fully understand these box plus minus numbers, I want to dive into the tape. I'm going to look at this recent game the Rockets played against the Denver Nuggets and Şengün's idol, Nikola Jokic. Early on in this game, Şengün sends a high screen and roll, gets a good bounce pass, and Aaron Gordon comes down to stop him from getting in the paint. So he pulls up and makes a little easy elbow jumper. Şengün gets the ball in the same spot on the next possession. Jokic knows he can hit the jumper, so Şengün pump fakes, attacks, puts his shoulder right into Jokic, and nails a hook. Jokic wants to come back and attack Şengün, so they set a screen and roll with him as the primary ball defender. He's able to recover after getting buried by the screen, come up with a huge block, and that creates an easy bucket in transition for Houston. After Şengün put a body into Jokic before, he leaves a lot of space for Şengün this time. Şengün hits a 1-foot jumper that we've seen Jokic hit many times before. Here, Jokic leaks out for 3, Şengün respects the 3, Jokic takes it and misses it, but that's a makeable shot for Nikola Jokic. So the Rockets come down the other way, run a similar play for Şengün. Jokic leaves a ton of space, and Şengün knocks down his 3. Şengün's efficiency was what jumped off the page to me the most. He's shooting 60% this year from the field, despite only shooting 25% from 3. His effectiveness in the paint is truly eye-opening. He does leave a little bit to be desired defensively, but he was able to somewhat hold his own against Nikola Jokic. The two big free agency additions, Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks for the Rockets, have been playing very well so far. However, they were very expensive. Fred VanVleet signed a 3-year, $129 million contract this offseason, but he's been playing quite well since he arrived in Houston. He's averaging a career high in assists per game. In fact, his 7.9 assists per game are currently number 6 in the NBA. As for Dillon Brooks, he signed a 4-year, $86 million contract to come to Houston this year, and he's also been putting up a career high, but in field goal percentage. He's been shooting the ball lights out. He's currently shooting 53% from 3, which is 3rd best in the NBA, and he's taken over 30 up until this point, so he's averaging over 3 attempts per game. For all of the hate Dillon Brooks gets, I think he deserves some credit for how well he's been playing, even though a lot of the hate he gets is self-inflicted. And these two players have been playing very well, so I want to give them a big shout out here as they've been a big reason why the Rockets have been so successful. But the biggest reason the Rockets have success is because of their defense. They are currently number 4 in defensive rating, number 6 in net rating, and are number 6 in opponent field goal percentage. The Rockets also have the best defender according to defensive box plus minus this season. Jae'Sean Tate has been playing out of his mind on the defensive end so far this season. So taking an even closer look at these defensive numbers, the Houston Rockets are number 3 in opponent points per game, are number 17 in turnovers forced per game, number 24 in steals per game, and number 29 in blocks per game. So that means the Rockets are a very good defensive team that aren't making impactful defensive plays. So what exactly does that mean? And it led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But currently the Houston Rockets are the number 29th team in pace in the NBA. So they slow teams down, grind them out, and make stops on the defensive end. So in a time where pace seems so important in the NBA, the Rockets are zigging when everybody else is zagging. And Coach Ime Udoka is a big reason why. If you look at his time with the Celtics, they were 24th in pace, and when you're dealing with a team that is slow pace, you have to look at their per 100 possession game stats. And the Celtics were number 7 in points per game per 100 possessions, and they were also number 2 in opponent points per game per 100 possessions. So when you shrink the number of possessions and your effectiveness is high in those, that's how you end up with good winning teams. Let's look at last year's champions, Denver Nuggets. They were the 23rd ranked team in terms of pace last year. As for their per 100 possession stats, they were number 5 in points per game per 100, and number 14 in opponent points per game per 100 possessions. So also a very good team on both ends, and when you shrink the number of possessions down, their effectiveness goes up. So then what are the Rockets right now? Currently, the Rockets are the 11th best team in points per game per 100 possessions, and they are the number 4 team in opponent points per game per 100 possessions. So their numbers are kind of on par with those really successful Celtics and Nuggets teams. And when you look at it, the Houston Rockets are built a lot like the Denver Nuggets. They have an offensive-minded center, length and shooting on the wings, and floor-spacing playmakers at the guards. Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet fill the Jamal Murray role. So my final takeaway in all of this analysis is the Houston Rockets really do have what it takes to make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to play this well the entire season, but I think that they're going to play just good enough to at least make the play-in. It would be interesting to see if Jalen Green makes a jump. He hasn't done much more than he has in previous seasons, so basically I'm looking at that. If Jalen Green makes a jump, if Jabari Smith Jr. makes a jump, maybe they can be a top 5 team in the West this season. But if not, I think that they really are a play-in caliber team, and they can go to the playoffs. And I'm going to say that's very good for a team that won 22 games last season.